Vina de Laura. Vina de Laura was a Native American man who faced the prejudice of white Americans growing up. He was born in 1933 and died in 2005. So the Indians were stereotyped through the medium and in books. In his book, We Talk, You Listen, he was strongly advocating against the injustice of his people within the book and asked the audience to look beyond the stereotypes in skin color and see that we're all human. This is a man who was judged because of the fact that he had the skin color and the dark hair and the high cheekbones, and they were considered to be minorities, and these were people that were considered to be disgusting and trash and a bunch of other things, that they didn't speak English and that they couldn't read or write. And he's stating in his book that a small percentage of Indians cannot read or write or even speak English, and that because he grew up in a reservation, then clearly he took the Indian idealism higher to a standard, which isn't true, because of the fact that he was able to look beyond the white people and say, hey, look, this is something that I have to deal with, that because my skin color is this color, you have to look down on me and consider me inferior. And which is not true. And the media definitely doesn't help with the different Wild Wests and like how the Indians were considered to be savages and barbarians. And so when you read this book, this is something that this is more of an informational text. This is something that he's educating people about. This is something that he wants to let people know, hey, this is not who we are. This is somebody that we need to overcome and you guys need to overlook because of the fact that we are not who you think we are. The next person that we need to talk about is Moja-Koff. Moja-Koff is somebody who's pretty cool. So she's still living. She was born in 1967, so she was born in Syria, and she immigrated with her family to America at a really young age. And she wrote something super amazing, which is called The Girl in the Tangerine Scarf. This is about her time living as a Muslim in America, and how she was judged for wearing a headscarf. She was judged for her skin color. She was judged for the way she talked, the way she looked, the way she dressed. And so she was considered to be inferior, but she grew out of that. She rose to the challenge. She saw it more as a challenge than something as, this is you label me as this, so this is what I must be. She was pretty incredible because of the fact that she spoke out about the injustices. The book explored the injustices that she faced because they didn't understand her group. They didn't understand the Syrian community. They didn't understand the culture. One of the major themes that you find throughout this historical timeline is the culture. They didn't understand the culture of the America itself, didn't understand the culture of the minorities, so they looked down upon them and saw them as something to be considered less than nothing. Josiah Strong was somebody that decided to say, hey, we can elevate these races through it by allowing them to be Christians. Or because just like in Rome, anyone who's not a citizen is considered a barbarian or a lesser person. Until you become a citizen, you were considered barbarian. That's basically what Josiah Strong is attempting to say, but at the same time saying that you are able to be a better person by conforming to this. So, moving from slavery to freedom from slavery. This is something that is highly, highly, highly thought about, because you have Josiah Strong, and then you also have Plessy versus Ferguson and the Indian Appropriations Act. So, slavery to freedom, as you look at Taylor, she's moving from her own personal experiences of being a slave to becoming a freed person, living in America and becoming a nurse in the Civil War. Josiah Strong says that you cannot be a superior race. You cannot be considered somebody who can be a citizen until you've developed Christianity. And then once you've developed Christianity, as you go through Plessy versus Ferguson, you have the the insanely awful Jim Crow laws that say that Plessy versus Ferguson, that so Plessy versus Ferguson is saying that you're separate but not equal. So because of the Jim Crow laws, the segregation that allowed for a little bit more freedom. So they're no longer slaves, but they still have the freedom to be able to go where they need to go, but they can't go where they want to go because it is a white consolidated group. And then you have the Indians Appropriations Act. So this put tribes on reservations designed to protect Americans from the white settlement, or Native Americans from the white settlement, and then strict regulation by the federal government. This is something that we've seen that is an economical and political movement of power. This is something that the government can control. This is something that the government can regulate. So, as you're moving from slavery to freedom from slavery, you have to understand that as this happens, there is going to be a backlash. It's going to be a push from the government that's going to be like, this is my power. This is something that you're taking from me because of the people. So there will be freedom, in quotations, but it will be limited freedom. This is something that is awful and terrible, but as you look in today's society, there is freedom from the segregation. There is freedom that you have today. So there is hope that there is going to be change. Crossing over the living outside to inside the U.S. So Americo Banderas says this best because of the fact that he lived technically in Mexico, but while at the same time living in America. He does not there is the time where he's not able to understand of why there's so much backlash on Mexicans who live in America when Mexicans were technically the ones that owned the land before, and the white Americans actually married into the Mexican families to be able to gain the land. So, as I've said before, the Indians originally owned the land of America because they were the first ones there. The reservation treaties were signed with tribes. They promised food, clothing, supplies, and they would be left alone. So the boundaries were established for each tribe. But the movement didn't go that well. And then you also have Oswego versus the United States. This is something that, as I said before, this is a man who lived in America for 20 years. He lived in America. He immigrated from Japan to America, but he could not gain citizenship in America even while living there for 20 years. This is something that he would not be naturalized because of his Asian descent. So while you can live in America, but now today you can go through what is called an immigration or citizen application, and you can gain citizenship. So this was a way, again, that the government can help hold on to the power. They made the decisions. They can do a bunch of other stuff. And the one thing that wasn't mentioned before was Vinay Delora. Vinay Delora had the same issues with living on a reservation. Generations ago, his family lived in America first. They had the land, but then America came over and took it over. So crossing over from living outside to inside the U.S. is something that you have to understand that is not easy for any minority group, especially for Carlos Bulosan or Moja Koff or anybody, because of the fact that they have to face so much political backlash that is designed to keep the minorities inferior. Situated in the margins of power and privilege since the Second World War. So, Josiah Strong, again, he's the only white man in this historical timeline that can actually say that I have something to say, because of the fact that he had a theological approach to how this should be done, how America should be helped with Christianity. So he had margins of power. And then also you have the Supreme Court, again, Oswego versus the United States. This is during the time after, and so court ruling, they're not eligible for citizenship because they're not classified as Caucasian. This is, again, political and socioeconomical because they are not allowed to be considered citizens. We are still considering anyone of color to be a minority. Anyone who they don't have as much power as the white race. And that is due simply because of the ignorance of the white people. And so we have the margins of power. We have the government. You have the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Plessy versus Ferguson, Oswald versus United States, Josiah Strong, and then you also have the Indians Appropriations Act. All of these are designed to keep somebody of a color or of a cultural aspect that is not white in a small box. This is where the government has the power. They have the power to control. They have the power to make the laws and pass the laws. And then it's so hard during that time period for someone to be able to rise up into the political standpoints to become somebody that can help make the laws better for the minority groups. So what did I use to be able to get all my information from? I used Garcia. This man was somebody who decided to, he had the ability to look past. He wrote an article that stated that to become a literacy critic, you have to look beyond what the text is trying to tell you. You have to look at the minority, you have to look at the background, you have to look at the problems that they faced. Plifser said the same thing in the sense that they are able to, you have to understand their background, but you also have to understand about who they are. Like, minorities have so much influence and culturalization within America that many, many, many people overlook. So Corrigan is somebody who used 5 different steps, 5 different literacy analysis, almost. So how readable is the text, and does it convey the thoughts of the author? This is something, as I've done with Susie King, I've done it with all of the 8 surveyors that I told you about. Each one of these faced their own points in their life where they felt kind of defeated and down. But they have to understand the form of their text was, a lot of it was informational. This is something that's going on. This is something that can be changed. And so the meaning is open-ended. There are many ways to look at a text to figure out what the author intended. There are many ways that you can interpret Susie King, Bulosan, Paderas, but one thing that they've all conveyed in their meaning is that this needs to change. This is something I'm educating you about. This is my culture. This is my minority race. How you look at it is something that's completely up to you. But this is the viewpoint that we stand from. This is our words. This is our thoughts. This is our meaning conveyed behind. So the background of an author is just the beginning of the context, but the text is part of the content. As a critic and as a reader, one person needs to look into the text in a deeper value than just seeing it just face-to-face value. There's something that is always going to be hidden behind the words. You need to look beyond the words. Sometimes the word, what it's trying to tell you, is just as it is. Look at the metaphors, look at the similes, look at something that they may be trying to say. So form is also the way the text has been shaped and patterned, which offers a deeper understanding of the text. This is the way that, look at the wording. The wording, the form. Informational. Is it a memoir? Is it an autobiography? Is it a biography? Is it someone who's taken their own words and shaped into something else? That allows you to gain a deeper understanding of who this author is and what it's trying to convey. This allows you for a critical and deeper critical understanding of the text. So when you're reading, decode the text. Unfamiliar words and phrases should be looked up. If you don't understand the dialect or the dialogue of what they're trying to say, you need to look it up, because if you don't, you're going to miss something important, and it's completely change the meaning and the history and the understanding of the text. Because as a reader and as an author, you need to look beyond. And so the 2 analyses that I have come up with. So we have white race ignorance. This is something that is prevalent in American society, that we do not understand what is being said. We don't understand the different minorities. We are ignorant. We do not look beyond who we are as a people to see